One.
All right.
Hello, everybody. This is Ashley. This is a broadcast for my YouTube channel, The Couch, which you can subscribe, like, and share. But we also post here to Facebook just to get a little bit more audience engagement. So I have somebody super special here with me. I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. He's fairly well known around these parts. Tell the people about yourself. Who are you?
My name's Lorenzo Mobley. I live in Killeen, Texas. I graduated recently from Harker Heights High School and currently I'm attending Texas State University.
Awesome.
Um, Grew up here for pretty much my whole life. So this city is really important to me.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing. Being so young. And just in case you guys haven't seen all the banners and the different things I got going on at the bottom, he is your friendly local protester. So as a result of the issues with George Floyd and his timely death, a lot of people have been protesting and really been up in arms, and rightfully so. And so today I thought this would be a good time to just interview and talk with a protester, someone that's out there that's on the front lines. If you're somebody like myself, you've gone to protest, but you haven't necessarily been super involved. And so this is our opportunity to kind of get the inside track. So I'm going to ask some questions. Definitely feel free to comment and share. If you have any questions, let us know. We can ask him. All right. And so our first question is, how did you make the decision to become a protester?
Well, to me personally, it was never a matter of deciding. Since as long as I can remember, I was a really, nerdy kid, and history was really entertaining to me. And you watch things on the History Channel, and you go and you look things up. And once you're a kid and you get a phone, and that's some things that interest you, I've looked all this stuff up, and I've known it even before I was in high school, and it's always been something that didn't sit right with me. And then I've started to be more aware of it even then, going on in my own community. So when, I just recently turned 18 a few months ago. And so now I'm able to make my own decisions for myself and to go out and do these things and to not have to worry about too much about, other people trying to dictate what it is I can and cannot go do and when. And so seeing these things happening and knowing that I could go do it, I just felt like I had to. There's never really like me trying to decide whether or not that was something that I was going to go do.
Wow, that's really awesome. I think a lot of times when people think about protesting, they think that it's going to be, older folks. They think millennials. They think that, some of the younger people are probably not going to be as involved as far as like leading the protest and organizing.
It's actually quite the contrary when you look at some of the people that I've seen. Most of them are anywhere from like 19 to 27. Most of them aren't super old either. Like even the oldest ones, they're like maybe in their mid 30s that you see. It's really, I feel like my generation is the one that's being the most vocal, I think, about this because we've had less, I don't know how to describe it. We've had less time without the technology to give us the information that a lot of people are deprived of without phones and Google and just readily accessible to everybody all over the world. Just 15 years ago, it wasn't really like that.
Right.
So now our generation is the one that's taking the initiative to learn about these things and to go out there and stand up for not just our elders, but for the generation that it will come after us as well.
Yeah, I think that that's so important to really advocate for yourselves. I do think that maybe a part of the thought process that some people have as far as what age groups are the main contributors to the protest, I think some of that is coming from maybe a lack of understanding as to what the protest, even in the 60s, right? The civil rights movement,
Mm-hmm.
how old those people were. I think that when you do the research and you find out that there were children even
Mm-hmm.
that were super big a part of that, high school students, college students like SNCC, a lot of the people that were involved in some of our like earlier prototypes for marching and peaceful protests, a lot of that came from a younger generation. Not all of it was from those who were already older with families and 30 plus crowd. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it was super great, even just having you express that for that reason, to really raise awareness that you guys are advocating for your own futures and not necessarily relying on other generations to do that for you. So
Yeah.
that's super commendable. So another question I wanted to ask, how many protests have you been a part of?
Personally, I've only gone to the one protest that was in Austin outside of the police headquarters, where we marched from the city hall in Austin, the Capitol building in Austin, and we marched down to the police department. But it's just because before, like I said, I never really had the ability to just go and do it whenever I felt like it. My parents would have to know about this and this and that. And, they fear for me and things like this. So I had to just go and just make the decision myself. And now I have the ability to do that, whereas before I didn't. So, but yeah, I've only gone to the one, but I definitely plan on going to more. It's just they're a little bit trickier to find at the beginning than they are at the end.
Yeah, that's a good point. And rightfully so. I think parents definitely are
Yeah.
responsible for their children, and they would probably want your safety. So I get that
Mhm.
completely. Another question: do you have any organizations that you work with to organize the protest?
Well, I wouldn't consider us an organization. We're a group about five of us. We started reaching out to each other and we realized that, we're probably not the only people that are having these conversations. And so we just got together, excuse me, to unify, I guess, some more of the people that were in our graduating class, some more people we know in high school that graduated a few years ago, and just using any sphere of influences that we've developed over the years to get people together on this.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I think that's an important point too, maybe for other people who are looking to organize and maybe don't feel like they have the manpower. What you guys have done with, five people has actually been, it's been quite a lot, considering. How many people would you say have showed up to the gathering that you guys had, or maybe the last?
Um, well, the very first protest, I believe one of the five of us was in attendance there, and it was very like marginally large. I'd say definitely over 50, 60 people. And the march that we're organizing is looking at almost double that, even if everybody is actually in attendance, and it would really be quite something, especially for our little city.
Yeah, true. Killeen is a smaller town for those of you who are watching that don't know exactly anything about Killeen because we're not like on the map at this
Yeah,
moment.
we're not as big as Austin and even Waco, but a lot of good things can come from it still.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. They said the same thing about Jesus. What good thing can come out of Nazareth? So we're seeing what good things can come out of Killeen. And I think a lot of people have also commented on the peaceful nature of the protest. And I really think that the smaller crowd size makes a more manageable
Yeah.
protest as well, because
Hmm.
a lot of people have been saying that some of these people that are calling themselves protesters, but they're actually from a completely different side of things with a
Hmm.
completely different agenda, intending on causing violence and harm in order to discredit the movement. And so I think that sometimes when you have those smaller numbers, you are able to better control like what image is being put
Hmm.
out there to the media.
And what makes it so much easier to us personally is that we're not just putting together this with just saying, hey, everybody, like we want everybody to be in attendance, but the very first people we started reaching out to were our peers and, you know, the people we already have relationships and whose characters we can already vouch for to a certain degree, you know, as big as it'll get, because we pretty much know most of everybody that was in our graduating class or within the classes just above or just below. So the relationships amongst, I guess you could say, our generation here are pretty tight knit to where we can sort of all have the same ideas about a lot of things without really having to relay the information, so to speak.
Yeah, and I could see how that would work both ways too. That those who are determined not to see the kind of change that the
Mm-hmm.
protesters like yourself are pushing for, that they're also deeply embedded within a social infrastructure that ultimately is geared towards staying the same. And
Yeah.
so, it seems like both sides are kind of relying on that social infrastructure in order to, either push for change or stay the same. Um,
Well, I don't even think that some of the people who are denouncing it want things to stay the same. They just, well, from the things that I've seen people have projected or expressed, it's that they feel like the change needs to come about or be incentivized in a different way.
mm,
Whereas I feel like some of the actual protesters who did things that are a bit more extreme, you know, there's a it's tragic to hear about things like that and to know that people are losing their buildings and their shops and stuff. But the way I personally feel about it is that, you know, it's different when it's like a symbolic building burning versus somebody going and just burning a building just because they have some sort of vendetta. And they use this as a way to sort of cover that up and to take advantage of and to be more self-serving. And that's where I feel like the line should be drawn, is when it's not for the cause anymore, when it's just to serve yourself. Because at that point you're not protesting anything, you're just vandalizing.
Absolutely. I saw a post the other day that said the protesters are going to protest, but the looters are going to loot, but they're not the same people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that sums up what you said pretty accurately. And so, what has been one of the most eye-opening moments for you since all of this started?
One of the most eye-opening moments for me personally was when I went to the march. There was a mother with her two children there, and when I say children, I mean like four and maybe like a 6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old son. And he's out there with us, shouting, protesting there, as if he knows everything that's happening and transpiring. Where, you know, I feel like even to some degree he probably does, but when you see a child walk up to a police officer and ask them what they feel about these things, and to ask them questions that are actual questions that an adult would be asking a police officer to their face, and you can see the restraint of a police officer to hold back tears looking at a child, that really just opens your eyes to where the actual issues are, I guess you could say. Because I feel like people who feel generalized tend to generalize others. And
Mm,
so when you look at police officers, we forget that when they take off the suit and they take off the badge, they're just members of the community with their families living probably right down the street from you, just like everybody else.
yeah.
And I feel like the news and other police officers who misrepresent what being a police officer is, you know, they give people the ability to generalize all police officers that way. And when I saw that, it really opened my eyes to, you know, just my own thinking of me doing the same thing and just assuming that all police officers are all standing for the same things, where I really feel like they aren't.
That's such a good point that I feel like hasn't been said enough. When it comes right down to it, these same people, when they take off their uniforms, they're your neighbors, they're your
Mm-hmm.
cousins, they're your uncles, they're women, they're men, they're young people, they're you know baby boomers, maybe. There's so many things that link them to us.
Mm-hmm.
They're the generation that they come from, the nationality that they are. There's so much that we can say about the police officers that really doesn't have a lot to do with what job they work at. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, because a lot of the rhetoric that's been coming has been anti-police. There's actually a lot of people who would prefer to get rid of, just abolish the entire police force, like nationwide. What do you say to people who feel that strongly?
Well, to me, I feel like that is not going to solve anything, because if you get rid of the police, something would just replace it that's probably going to be worse and more intense than what the police is now. What I think people really need to be targeting, or, directing their frustrations towards, is the people who are creating the mandates for police officers, the people who are sitting down with suits and ties and pens and paper and telling police officers what they can do, what they cannot do, and how and when it needs to be done. Those are the people that are the real, the real proprietors of any sort of issues that are happening in the country, because they're the ones that are dictating everything that's going on. The police officers are just pawns in the game that they're playing, when you look at it from that point of view. So that's what I would say to that, is that there's no point to get rid of police officers, because I just want them to do their jobs the right way. That's the only issue I have. It's for all of them to do their jobs the right way, just not to have jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And so, are there any memorable moments that were specifically touching, like one negative, one positive moment since the protest began, that you'd like to share?
Well, first, to start with the negative, there was an opposite instance to where I saw the child and the police officer interacting, where I saw a police officer verbally provoking, one of the people that was protesting, through whatever sort of, apparently some sort of mild words came out, or something, lips read or something like that. The man was shouting out, and I walked up to him to try to get him to stop, because the police were really, really tense and on edge, and they were armed and everything like that. And that one spark could have lit something way, way worse. And it hurt me so much to see just how much realer it is for some people, I guess you could say, how much it really desperately touches people to see these things be done. And to some people, it can't wait another day or another hour or even another second, and then they lose it. And it just hurts you to see how broken the society has made some of these people out here. But then on a lighter note, when we first got out there and they first had rushed out of the police station, we walked up to the officers with the bicycles standing at the front line, and we walked up and we talked to them. And we told them, without any bullhorns, megaphones, anything, all we want to do is for you to kneel with us, and for y'all to know that we don't want you to feel like enemies. We want y'all to be our allies. And the very first person, there was she was a white woman, on the very front line. She was probably in her early 20s, very, very young woman. And as soon as we're out there and she hears us speaking, and she bursts into tears, and she was the very first person that day to kneel. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, I never really thought that just coming out here and saying words could actually, change people's hearts so quickly, that they would, go against what their commanding officers, whoever, is saying and instructing them to do, for something so much bigger than all of us. And that really did take me aback, because I'd never seen anything like that before.
That, what, I think that we've all seen some really just hard moments in the media, and then I think that we've all seen some positive moments. I know for me, seeing that line of white women specifically, I think there may have been some men in there, but I think it was mostly white women standing in front of protesters and want to say it was in Minneapolis. I'm not really sure, but I remember seeing that and literally almost being brought to tears, because it's one thing for you to shout and for you to protest and for you to march and for you to seek justice. It's another thing for somebody that doesn't even benefit as much as you do from something like this, even though I think we all benefit from justice. But
Yeah, I understand.
in the grand scheme of things, there's some people who don't see that they benefit at all. So to be in a position where you are privileged and you don't have to, share as much in our pain, and to kind of join yourself to that, I think is a really harrowing event. I think it's
Very much
amazing,
so.
an amazing way to use, what privileges you have in order to, really protect the disenfranchised. So I think that was super amazing. And even hearing your stories, I mean, that's super awesome. And I hope to see, I think, more, from you, maybe going live or something like that on Facebook, so the people can kind of share in those experiences and see what it's like being on the front line, especially if they can't come out there themselves. So tell the audience why you think protesting is important.
Protesting is important because that's the only way you get change. I can't recall too many instances in the history of all of mankind where actual change came about without some sort of resistance from the people who were requesting it. People who have a clutch or on somebody or something, they're not going to let it go without resistance. And without the resistance, it may even get tighter and stronger. So if you don't protest issues and injustices and inequalities, then they'll just compound themselves. And so that's why it's very, very important. And that's why it's in our Constitution, because that's the way our country was born.
Definitely. Our ability to speak out for ourselves is so important. The freedom of speech that we have in this country, and in other countries that have joined in protesting with us, I think has been so pivotal in shifting the fight, shifting, and positioning us in a space that we're in, where we're getting some things accomplished. People are really becoming more aware. I'm seeing videos of young white children, really talking to their parents very frankly, in disagreement, about the treatment of African Americans. And I think that that's really awesome. I feel like we're winning allies in places that I don't think that we've ever really felt like we've had allies before. And that's, I think, one of the major things that you mentioned that's super important about protesting, and putting a voice to it. So what are your goals with each march or protest that you do?
My goal ultimately is to just be a part of motivating the U.S. government to regulate and mandate police arrests, and to create a protocol to where police have to follow all over the country, and that there shouldn't be any discrimination or any sort of oppressive authority used in any instance. And if it is, it should be punishable by the law, the same way you would see a doctor be punished for malpractice, or a lawyer punished for perjury, or any sort of thing like that. I feel like police officers are being held to a lower standard as civil servants than other civil servants. And that's why I go out there and march, because, it should be something that's revered, not something that's feared and resented by the community around it.
Yeah, malpractice insurance for police officers. That's a novel thought, actually. That might need to be something that is put in place, because more police offices, I feel like, have been sued or are being sued, probably more in the recent, like the last maybe 10 years, probably than maybe there have been. I definitely have to look up the stats on that, because that's a really excellent thought. Um, so last question, are there any upcoming events? If so, do these events have the same previously mentioned goal, or does this one have a unique significance?
Well, the march that we have tomorrow at 1:30 at the Colleen Library, that's more so also to advocate for the Black Lives Matter movement. but to localize it more and to let our own city council know and our own legislators know that that we have a voice and that we feel like it's about time for our city to be reflecting the people that live in it rather than making them feel like they're stuck in the city that they live in. And then we also have um, a town hall that we're trying to put together for later next month where we want to have a majority of our community members be able to come out and express these things to each other and to create a dialogue within our community where I feel like there hasn't been one before.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. You're right. These smaller towns are seeing the bigger towns kind of go for it, and other countries go for it. So it's good to have a more localized place to kind of express, you know, whatever grievances, whatever concerns there might be, especially since sometimes the smaller towns might have issues that take place that maybe don't get as big of a platform. Because I'm sure that there have been other people other than those that we've hashtagged that
Yeah.
have actually had the same experiences as George Floyd. Maybe they lived, maybe they didn't. And I think that that's a great way to kind of start talking more and getting the conversation going. It's been so awesome having you.
It's been really
And I
great talking to
definitely,
you.
oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. I think that, you know, those that watch this video are going to learn a lot about maybe what this looks like. And I think what I'm taking out of this and what I'm encouraged to see is that it doesn't take a lot of people. It was you and like 5 friends of different nationalities. And I think that that's important for anybody to note that you don't have to have 100 people in order to make some impact. You can start with those that are closest to you and kind of build on that. So tell the people where the protest is going to be so maybe someone can, you know, stop on by.
We're going to start at 1:30 at the Killeen Library, and then we're going to be marching down to the Killeen City Hall, where we're going to stand and protest there outside of their chamber, the City Council chamber. It's going to be from about 1:30, 2 o'clock to about 4. You know, it's pretty hot outside, so we don't want to keep people too long, but it is still necessary, I feel like, for us to go out there and to have our voices be heard.
Absolutely. And is there some kind of social media event, you know, on Facebook or somewhere that people can kind of use as a reference?
We have an Instagram page that we've created called United We Stand. It's a stand without the D, and United has a 1 instead of an I, you know, how the usernames are. But we have a page where we post about what we're doing in our community, events that we're trying to put together, and just educational things to, shed some more light on everything that's happening.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So you guys heard him. Definitely. I've also put his Instagram handle, United We Stand. I've put that into the comments on the YouTube side of things. Hopefully it'll show up on the Facebook side of things. And definitely let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll make sure that we pass them along.
Okay.
And maybe we might get a part 2 going of this. Who knows? We'll see how it goes
Hopefully.
tomorrow. We'll see how it goes tomorrow, and I don't know, this might really be the thing that gets it going, gets people, you know, better aware of all of the great efforts that are being put forth to make sure that we get justice. All right, guys, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this podcast up. I see that there aren't any questions. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.